Today, I'm showing you exactly how I learned Korean on my own and how you can do it too. We'll go over the tricks and the habits that got me speaking in weeks instead of years. So, I've been at it for about 5 years now, and I've been living in Korea for a year. So, living in Korea, I can now comfortably order food, I can go shopping, and I can get around handling day to day situations. So, make sure to watch until the end, and I'll give you all my favorite resources so that you can learn Korean too, even if you're just starting out. I'm from the US and I'm a native English speaker, but I've always wanted to learn a new language. But for so many years, I just wasn't sure if it was possible because it seemed like such a daunting task. And Korean is actually the third language that I've attempted to learn, but it's the only one where I've achieved any type of success, meaning that Korean is absolutely possible to learn on your own for me, and it is for you also. Like many, I first got into Korean skincare, and eventually I started watching Korean dramas and listening to Korean music. And since I was already immersing myself in the language to some extent, I just decided to take the plunge and start studying on my own. And at that time, I never would have imagined that I would get this far. It's ultimately led me to an entire new life. My topic level is around lower intermediate, and I've made a lot of progress when it comes to practical use, meaning I'm confident free speaking in a way where I can handle most day to day interactions in Korea. And I can also freely speak about myself and my interests when I'm getting to know people in social situations. But while my pronunciation is far from native level and it is definitely not always perfect, I can easily chat with people and go about my normal day. So, of course, I also make a lot of grammar mistakes, but I find that the more I speak, the more I improve my pronunciation and the more clearly and correctly my speech flows. Of course, making mistakes is a very necessary part of learning a language. If you've ever felt stuck learning Korean, I can totally relate. Many people feel this way, so make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. It's going to help other people find videos like these, and it'll help you see more videos like this also. Here's a surprising truth about learning Korean. At first, learning Korean seems really complex because the sentence structure is so different than English. And yes, it does have honorifics and it has a different alphabet, but once you learn the core structure of the language, it's actually surprisingly predictable and efficient. So, the Korean language operates with a set of patterns that are often more logical than English, in my opinion. So, Korean also often requires fewer words to express an idea than English does. So, for example, instead of saying, I don't know, you can just say, 몰라요, one word. So, once you figure out the basic sentence structure and you get familiar with some basic verb conjugations and vocabulary, there's a lot you can do in Korean. When I started studying Korean, I was a total beginner and I didn't even know 안녕하세요. 안녕하세요. But since I've tried to study other languages before and my main goal is to be able to speak and understand Korean, I knew I had to focus on speaking from day one. So that's just exactly what I did. With self study, it's really easy to get caught up in consuming content like reading or watching videos, but it's so important to ensure that your output is matching your input. So, whenever you read or hear things in Korean, try to say them out loud whenever possible. Our mouths have muscle memory, so you want to build this as quickly as possible if you really want to be able to speak Korean. So, I started with a daily speaking audio program and I balanced that with a workbook that got me started learning Hangul. So, Hangul is the Korean alphabet. And I was reading, spelling, and writing very basic Korean sentences by doing the workbook. And I decided to wake up 30 minutes earlier and I did 30 minutes of my Korean beginner workbook. And then I listened to the speaking program during my commute to work, which was another 30 minutes. So in this 1 hour a day, I was able to get exposure to reading, writing, listening, and speaking, which are all so foundational to learning a language. I think the most crucial habit was always speaking out loud whenever I read or wrote something, and also thinking in Korean throughout the day as I learned more words and phrases. So, as a K drama lover, I started watching one episode of a K drama at night to further immerse myself in the language. To this day, I recall certain Korean phrases that I learned from K dramas, such as 맛있겠다 from Boys Over Flowers. It's also so motivating to be able to pick up more and more words in Korean dramas as you progress. The real turning point in my language learning happened when I started practicing real conversations. And this can be tricky if you're like I was and don't know any Korean speakers, but there's actually a lot of online platforms where you can connect with a Korean tutor or where you can find a language exchange partner. So I started doing 30-minute casual conversations virtually with a Korean tutor about twice a week. And it was definitely scary at first. Even after all the studying, conversing real time in another language is tough, but it's only going to get better with practice. So I recommend starting as soon as you know enough basic sentences to have a short conversation. And a great thing about starting real conversation is that it's going to quickly reveal any knowledge gaps you have. For example, you'll want to share things about yourself and then realize that you can't say it in Korean. And so write those things down and go study them later. So, what actually worked the best? In addition to speaking out loud and immersing myself as much as possible, making time every day to study Korean was the most important step. Consistency is everything in learning a new language, and getting into the habit of studying at a dedicated time made all the difference for me. So, for example, it's more effective to study every day for 30 minutes than it is to study for 3 hours only on Saturday. The biggest mistake I made was when I would get busy with other things and not make time to study Korean. The longer you go without studying, the more difficult it is to start again, and the more you have to re-review. Another trap that's easy to fall into is just holding on too strongly to what you've learned already in a book or in a course and not allowing your mind to shift and absorb new variations of words or more natural phrases that are actually used more often by native Korean speakers. So to avoid that, I recommend paying close attention to how various words and phrases are actually used in spoken Korean. And you might realize that you've learned an outdated phrase, or maybe you've been pronouncing something incorrectly. And it's just an important part of learning the language to make sure to keep an open mind and a flexible mind so you can continually improve and level up by relearning things if you need to. Another really effective study method for me was keeping track of key vocab words and reviewing them during meals. So I used Anki app to make my flashcards, and if I was grabbing a quick bite, I would just take out Anki app and review some vocab. Anki app also has pre-made decks, so I use someone's deck to learn the Korean colors, for example. Since we're talking about learning Korean, you might be curious to know what your Korean skill level is. So we created a free 5-minute Korean level test to help assess your abilities, and you can find it in the description below. So once you have a solid Korean foundation, you're going to want to connect with Korean speakers for both language and culture exchange, because that is why you're learning the language, right? So if you don't know any native speakers, you can join a language exchange app and you can find native Korean speakers who also want to learn English. And this is a great way to start messaging in Hangul, and you can make Korean friends. Many of the language exchange apps actually have a built-in translator and a correction function to make it easier for you and your language exchange partner to help each other learn. And with that, of course, you'll want to enable the Hangul keyboard on your phone. Another fun way to immerse yourself in Korean is by reading Korean webtoons. They often use conversational language, which makes it easier to pick up on useful phrases. And they also have pictures, so it's easier to understand even if you're a beginner. If you're a K-entertainment fan, you can follow your favorite K-pop stars or Korean actors online, and soon you'll be able to read their posts in Korean and also comment in Korean yourself. There's endless opportunities to interact with Korean content online if you know where to find it. So now that you've heard about my journey, what are the first steps that you should take? First, figure out the best time for a study schedule and your energy levels, whether it's first thing in the morning, on your lunch break, or right before bed, and try to set aside that time every day for studying. Even if you don't know Hangul, you can learn it quickly online. And while mastering Hangul reading and pronunciation takes time, you can absolutely learn the basic letters in a day or two. And that's a quick win, and it's incredibly rewarding to suddenly be able to read another alphabet. So next, you're going to want to set actionable goals based on the time you have and how quickly you want to progress. So one method is to learn 3 words every day, a noun, an adjective, and a verb, because with these 3 new words, you can combine them to make at least 6 new sentences. And another method is to learn 10 vocabulary words a day, or to just study 1 dialogue in your book every day. Setting an actionable goal and sticking with it is going to be the key to success. Next, organize which resources you think are the best for you and just dive in. As you get started, here are some more strategies that can help you learn Korean faster. One is thinking in Korean. This is one of the easiest ways to improve quickly, even if you don't live in Korea. So as you go about your day-to-day life, just start thinking in Korean. Try to describe what you're doing in simple Korean sentences, even if you're just hanging out at home. So, for example, if you're making breakfast, you can say, I'm cooking eggs. 계란을 요리하고 있어요. This will really help build fluency naturally over time, and you'll also start recognizing gaps in your vocabulary. So you can also use new vocab words in sentences right away. once you're able to shift into making your own Korean sentences, if you do learn a new word, try to make it into a sentence right away and use it in your day-to-day life. This is really going to help you build fluency because you'll start training your mind to think in full Korean sentences. Next, you can label objects around the home. It's another really great way to build vocabulary. So I put sticky notes on my mirror, on my kitchen appliances, and on various items throughout the house. And this is going to effortlessly incorporate extra vocab learning throughout your day. So your mind is naturally going to start picking up these words and shifting in Korean as you just go about your daily routine. Next, try recording yourself speaking in Korean. It's another really powerful way to improve your speaking and to catch mistakes. And even if you don't have a language partner, listening back to your own voice is going to help you catch pronunciation mistakes. Sometimes when you listen to yourself speaking, it sounds a little different than you think it sounds in your head. So this will help really build speaking confidence over time. And you're going to feel so good when you go back and listen to an old recording and see how much progress you've made. Over time, you're going to hear real improvements. Another fun way to stay motivated is to keep a Korean journal. So even if you just write one sentence a day, it really helps to reinforce what you're learning. Also, if you're unsure about grammar, you can use a language exchange app to get corrections, or simply try to rephrase a sentence by using what you already know. Over time, you're going to see huge progress. I think one of the biggest mistakes that learners make is trying to memorize grammar rules in isolation. So instead, focus on learning grammar through example sentences and real life usage. So when you come across a new grammar point, don't just read about it, but write at least 3 sentences and try saying them out loud. This can really help reinforce how grammar works naturally in conversation. A great way to get immediate feedback and to practice typing in Korean is to use ChatGPT. So I personally use ChatGPT to practice my spelling. I'll type in my own sentences and then ask ChatGPT for corrections to give me more natural phrasing. Or if I spell something wrong, then I'll have it make a spelling test for me right away. It's been a great way for me to practice my typing and to help improve my accuracy with especially spelling. The most important thing to remember is that language learning is a journey. So don't be discouraged if you don't see instant progress. Just show up every day and you'll be surprised how much progress you can make over time. If you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe and check out the resources in the description to start your Korean language learning journey today. Good luck!